Television Hill. This is WJZ Breaking News.
We're following breaking news this morning, taking a live look from Chopper 13 at the BGE building in downtown Baltimore, where an explosion happened just before 9 a.m. There are reports of multiple injuries. 2 workers were stuck on a scaffolding dangling from the side of the building. The good news is those 2 workers have since been rescued. You can see the scaffolding there. Fire crews were able to bust out a window and pull those 2 workers to safety. We do have a crew on the scene. Annie Rose Ramos has the latest. Annie Rose, what are they saying out there?
Sean, we're at the corner of Fayette and Hanover, just by downtown Radisson here in downtown Baltimore. Now, what I can tell you is at around 8:30 a.m., eyewitnesses say they heard a large explosion, a large boom. They felt the ground shake. They saw debris flying in the air and smoke. They ran in every direction, and that is when they looked up and saw these 2 scaffoldings fall on the side of the building. One of the scaffoldings, thankfully, was empty. The other one had 2 workers on it at the time. One nearly, the eyewitnesses say, fell off and out of the scaffolding. The other one held on. When we arrived here, Sean, at the scene, Baltimore City Fire Department was racing inside. They broke open the windows at around the 8th or 9th floor and pulled those 2 workers on the scaffolding inside the BG&E building into safety. Now, we know that from Baltimore City Fire Department, there are roughly around 10 people injured from this incident. We have heard from BG&E, who has since released a statement from this morning. They say that there was construction going on inside of this building at the time the explosion took place. They say that luckily, because of the pandemic, because of the holidays, that there weren't that many people inside, thankfully, but there were people on this scaffolding, and that is who were trapped inside for over around 30 or 40 minutes, Sean, and luckily they have since been rescued. Now, on the scene now is an incredible amount of emergency services personnel, police, firefighters. We've seen Commissioner Harrison arrive. We have seen Mayor Brandon Scott just arrive here at the scene, getting a look at what's going on. Now, Sean, I got to tell you that honestly, a lot of the crew members who are standing around us and telling us what happened, they say that their concern is now towards these 2 scaffoldings on the side of this building and how they are going to come down safely. Their concern is that when they were here, when this explosion took place, they saw the roof that we now understand is partially caved in and destroyed, and they saw helmets from crew workers fly off from that building and land here on the side of the pavement, on the sidewalk here. So for them, they know the impact of this explosion that took place, and so their concern now goes to the scaffoldings itself and how that is going to safely come down. As we mentioned earlier, we see Mayor Brandon Scott here on the scene getting briefed by officials here, and we will be hearing from the fire department momentarily. Baltimore City Fire Department expects to give a press conference about what went down here at the scene in downtown Baltimore at the BG&E building. We're reporting live. I'm Annie Rose Ramos for WJZ.
Annie Rose, thank you. And as you were just seeing live picture from Chopper 13, the roof of that building, which is a partial collapse. Captain Cindy in Chopper 13. What are we seeing from the sky, Captain Cindy?
Sean, thank you. So right now we are taking a look at the rooftop of this BGE building. We are seeing firefighters that have been walking around on top right there. On the east side of the building, we can see that is the most heavily damaged on the rooftop. We are seeing some parts that they look like they have been peeled back. We can see the glue that was attached to the top of the building that is now exposed. If we go over a little bit steeper onto our shot, we can actually see into the building through that rooftop. We're also able to see there's 2 scaffolding that are now hanging from this building. Back to you.
Captain Cindy, thank you. As you heard Annie Rose Ramos saying earlier, the fire department is now concerned with how they are going to get those scaffolding down safely. And as you look at the roof, you realize how fortunate we are that that building was mostly empty due to the holiday and, of course, the pandemic. A lot of workers are working from home, working remotely. Now, we do have some sound from witnesses about the explosion that happened just before 9 a.m.
It was like a shock, like a big vibration, kind of like a mini, I guess maybe earthquake. I've never really been in a real one. I've been in a fake one in Universal Studios years ago and as a kid. But it was kind of like, I guess, like a similar effect, like a vibration. And like I said, the glass over here, when, you know, wobbled. You know, and I was like, what is that? And it was boom, you know, you hear the loud sound. So, and like I said, you know, as we walked further up to try to figure out what's going on, that's when we seen the debris falling.
You can imagine quite the scary scene as there's the debris kind of raining from above after the explosion at the BGE building. This happened downtown, the BGE building, West Fayette Street and West Lexington. Crews are saying you must avoid this area. You can see quite the damage from the roof, a partial collapse. BGE saying that there was work being done on the building's air handling and boiler system. They believe that is the likely cause of the accident. There were at least 10 people injured, one serious injury. We did hear that 2 people were treated for minor burns. There were 2 workers trapped alongside of that building in a scaffolding. After the explosion, the scaffolding fell. There were 2 scaffolding. One is vertical. Luckily, that is not the scaffolding the workers were in. As we zoom out, you can see that scaffolding there. They were rescued by the fire department. We're hearing that they were able to bust out a window. It was either the 9th or 8th floor. They broke out that window. They were able to pull the 2 window washers, I believe. That's what they were saying. Pull them to safety. There still were other injuries. At least 10 people were injured. Annie Rose Ramos is live on the scene with the latest. Annie Rose.
Sean, we are surrounded by crew members who are working at the time of this explosion. At around 8:30 a.m., there were crew members not just in this BG&E building, but in the one right next door. As you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but there's some unfinished work on the side. They tell me that they were putting in windows, that BG&E was just redoing this building next door, and that's why it was completely filled with crew members. As BG&E told us, it wasn't really filled up the building with employees at the time thanks to the pandemic, thanks to the holidays, but the crew members and those window washers were here. And so they tell us at around 8:30 a.m. that is when they heard this explosion and ran out of both buildings that they were in. The explosion, Sean, they tell us, was so big, so huge that the ground shook. There was smoke in the air. Debris went flying. When I tell you debris, they tell me that it wasn't just, you know, a few pieces of wood. It was helmets that flew off of some of the crew members' heads. That, if it gives you any indication of the impact of this explosion that took place. The helmets just sort of flew off the crew members' heads and fell onto the sidewalk here. Now, we've seen video from crew members who were showing us that they shot as they ran outside of the building, and the video show just people running in every direction that they could in complete fear, in complete bewilderment of what exactly went on. Now, the scaffolding workers were trapped on this scaffolding for about, I want to say, Sean, 40 minutes out here before fire crews were able to get inside, blow out the windows and break out the windows and pull them inside to safety. Now, these are a few more words from some of the eyewitnesses that we spoke to earlier today.
Noticed something wasn't right. I was walking on this side of the street past the Radisson, and the glass on the building shook when it went boom, and I didn't know what it was. And as we walked further up, we seen debris falling across the street over there from the sky.
The debris falling from the window.
Yeah, it was like already falling midair. I've seen a few stretchers, about like at least 3 people taken on a stretcher, before this interview and between, the time that happened. So I don't know what happened with them guys. I don't know if something fell on top of them or if anybody falling on something. But yeah, at least about 3 people seen taken already on the stretcher.
Now, Sean, there is a massive emergency response here on the scene of West Fayette Street and North Hanover Street. Ambulances, firefighters, police department. I can tell you that the police commissioner Harrison is here, Mayor Brandon Scott, Council President Nick Mosby. They are all here, and they are all walking to the press conference that we are expecting Baltimore City Fire Department to have momentarily, just in the next few minutes, and we will bring you that live. Reporting live, I'm Annie Rose Ramos for WJZ.
Annie Rose, thank you. You could imagine how scary that scene was with that debris raining from above. We also have Rachel Menetoff, who's on the scene with a response from BG&E. Rachel, what are they saying? Actually, real quick, we're going to actually get to Rachel in just a second. Right now, we're going to get to the press conference, which is just about to be underway. So this is, yes, we have Blair Adams with the Baltimore City Fire Department waiting to update us on the explosion. She is the spokesperson for the Baltimore City Fire Department, and it looks like she's about to get started, so let's listen in. So as we wait for Blair Adams, spokesperson for the Baltimore City Fire Department, to get started, we'll just update you. There was an explosion around 8:30 this morning at the BGE building in downtown Baltimore. We know that there is at least 10 people that were injured in that incident. 2 window washers were trapped on a scaffolding. They have since been rescued by Baltimore City Fire Department. As you can see live from Chopper 13, that partial roof collapse. Good news is that building was mostly empty, they say, due to the pandemic and the holiday, which is, of course, Christmas coming up this Friday.
Is everyone else ready?
Now we're going to go to Blair Adams.
Good. So just before 8:30, we responded to the 100 block of West Fayette Street for a report of some sort of explosion. Once firefighters arrived on the scene, we did have 2 contractors working on a scaffold when the explosion occurred. As a result, they did have to be rescued by the fire department special operations team. There were approximately 21 people that we had to recover and rescue from the building. Out of those 21 people that had to be rescued from the building, 16 of those were transported to area hospitals. Or I'm sorry, 10 of those were transported to area hospitals for treatment. 9 of them are in critical condition, and we do have 1 of the 10 that was in serious condition. At this time, we do have fire department personnel going through the building, each floor, just to make sure that there aren't any additional people and that we've accounted for everyone that was in fact inside of the building. The cause right now is still under investigation and remains under investigation. As you can see, it's a pretty active scene right now that we have going on. But our priority is to make sure that the rest of the area is safe, the community is safe. We did evacuate 2 buildings, one on each side of the 100 block of West Fayette Street, just as a precaution to make sure that it's clear and safe. That's the preliminary information that we do have right now. I will turn it over to Chief Ford with some additional updates.
Good morning, all. This is, unfortunately, the fire department trains for these type of events. Not for every situation, but we do train our special operations team, our firefighters, our EMTs did an outstanding job, as well as support teams like Baltimore Police Department and other organizations that help secure the area and make sure that we were able to get to the people that were involved in this unfortunate incident and get them out of here as safely as possible. Now we're at the point where we're trying to wrap things up and in the process of demobilizing all the units as quickly as possible and trying to make sure this situation is as safe as possible because we still have scaffolds hanging on the side of the building. But we're at the point now where we're looking at turning down this event actually in a slow manner, not actually fast. We're going to do it slowly and methodically. At this point, the mayor would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief Ford, and good morning, everyone. This is unfortunate, but this is why our department trains and is ready. We're thankful to all the women and men of the fire department for getting here to help render aid and get the situation under control. Right now, we need everyone to be praying for the people that we know are in serious condition, folks who suffered injuries due to this unfortunate incident. We will continue to make sure the fire department, emergency management, and everyone else is working to do everything we need to secure this scene. We'll get the information as the information becomes available about the situation and continuing on the conditions of the residents and people that were inside the building. But we are thankful and grateful right now that we had life-saving work done by our fire department, which has always been one of the best in the country and has shown us continuously that they are ready for the challenges that they meet, and we are grateful for them. But right now we need people to pray for those people that were inside of this building and praying that they all have a speedy and full recovery. And now I'll turn it over to Council President Mosby for some remarks. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an unfortunate situation, but we know at this time, the rapid response of the amazing workers from the fire department, police department, as well as OEM are critical. But it also kind of highlights the important need of what we have here in our amazing healthcare system here in the city of Baltimore. So we look to continue to monitor the situation, continue to be a partner with the mayor, as well as the fire chief and the police department to ensure that the council is prepared to do anything to help support Mayor Brandon Scott in this.
Question, Fire Chief. Can you talk about the rescue and the status of the two workers, if any, what type of compensation was had as they were being rescued?
They were still tethered to the wires on the side of the building off the roof on the arrival of our units. At that point, our members made the decision to actually bring them inside the building, I believe through the 10th and 11th floor. One of the individuals they were able to pull through pretty easily on the 10th floor. The other one, one of our members had to step out on the scaffold, climb up the scaffold, and bring him through the 11th floor, and actually cut through the window in the 11th floor and bring him through the 11th floor. And at this time, they are in pretty decent condition.
Was there a language barrier?
There was. We did have to call for interpreters, but it wasn't just for those two individuals. It was actually for other individuals as well that were on the scene.
Do you know the individuals who were inside what company they were with? Were they just contractors?
There were several different contractors. I really don't know that information exactly.
And just to add, I think it's important to note this is why the city, the fire department, everyone works with folks to have interpreters ready because we know of the language dynamics across the city.
It wasn't when they first got here, of course, ma'am. They saw the outside of the building, and that's where they began. But our people started going through the building, searching for individuals who may need help or need to be evacuated. Some self-evacuated. Some they had to help out. They made it to the roof of the building, realized that there was a partial collapse on the roof of the building. The incident ran from approximately the 10th floor to the roof.
That's where all of the victims were located?
They were the roof, the side of the building, and certain parts of the floor where they were helped evacuate out. Understand, the building has been affected from the 10th floor to the roof, and there were several contractors working in the building.
How were they injured? Were they burned?
I do know we transported and Blair, you may have to correct me on it. We transported 10 of them. 9 of those 10, we've transported more, but 9 of those 10 were transported priority 2, which is a middle grade level priority. 1 was transported priority 3. He did have burns on him. The burns looked like to his arms and his chest area and other areas possibly.
Explain to us, is that 2 cars behind us? Is that 1 and what's that?
There's 2 scaffolds. There's one towards the north, I think the northwest end of the building, that'd be correct, northeast end of the building, and that one, no one was on that at the time.
And we'll just take 2 more questions.
Thank you. And the other scaffold was the shortest scaffold, the one that's laying around the 10th or 11th floor of the building, toward the middle of the building. That is the one that had 2 people on it. The other one had no one on it. Yes.
No, go ahead. Hold on for 1 second. Go ahead.
I didn't understand.
It's the remaining scaffold on the side of the building.
The last scaffold is not a concern. Thank you very much, you all. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
All right, we were just listening in about the explosion at the BGE building in downtown Baltimore. Some new information. We're just finding out that they had to rescue 21 people from that incident, that explosion that happened around 8:30 this morning. 10 were transported to hospitals for treatment, 10 in critical condition, 1 in serious condition. Baltimore City Fire Department is working their way through the building looking for other victims, other people that may be stuck or injured or hurt. We also heard from Chief Ford about their training. He said that they train for these events so that they can get people out that are trapped. Of course, we heard that they were able to rescue 2 window washers that were trapped on scaffolding on the side of the building. They were tethered to either the scaffolding or the building. Luckily, they were tethered to that, so they were able to stay safe. We also heard that 1 firefighter actually climbed out of the window onto the scaffolding to help rescue one of those workers. The other, they were able to just pull inside. Now let's check in with Annie Rose Ramos. She is live on the scene. Annie Rose.
Sean, we are at the corner of North Hanover Street and West Fayette Street, just by the Radisson here in downtown inner Baltimore. Now, I can tell you eyewitnesses say at around 8:30 a.m. they heard a massive blast, an explosion that shook the ground. They saw debris, they saw smoke flying in the air. One of the crew members said that they were working all in both this BG&E building and the building next door. They were putting windows on the side of the building. They said that while they were inside, they heard this blast, and the impact, the blast was so strong that it literally pulled and threw some of the helmets off of the crew workers, many of them running outside next to some that were injured, and meeting Baltimore City Fire Department along the way, who were quickly on the scene. I can tell you, Sean, that there are an incredible amount of emergency service personnel here, ambulance, fire department, police department. And Sean, at the time of the blast at around 8:30, there weren't that many people inside, luckily. BG&E says the employees were mostly away because of the pandemic, because of the Christmas holiday season, and so who was inside were these crew members and these window washers on the side of the building in these 2 scaffoldings. The explosion caused the scaffoldings to fall by the wayside of this building, trapping 2 inside. Some of the crew members say they saw one man holding on, nearly falling off of the scaffolding. That is when Baltimore City Fire Department came into the rescue. They came inside, as you mentioned, Sean, one even coming out onto the scaffolding to pull those 2 men inside, in for safety. Now, we spoke to people, bystanders here, who saw the incident go down, who were working inside the building at the time, and this is what they had to tell us. I'm sorry, Sean. And so let me tell you a little recap of what they were telling me, because they have videos, they have photos, and they were standing by. They still kind of are. They're all sort of standing, coalescing here on this corner. They were telling me that, you know, the impact of this blast was just so huge that they really couldn't believe what was going on. You can see some of their photos. They're sort of sitting there in bewilderment, even the injured, just because they just had no clue what the cause of this blast was. Now, we now know from BG&E that the construction that was going on the air and boiler system is likely the cause of this incident. Now, I would imagine they're going to be looking into this in the next 24 to 48 hours even more, but as of right now, they say that is what they believe the cause of this explosion was. And so, as you can see, we have heard from officials, Mayor Brandon Scott, Council President Nick Mosby, and councilmen and police and other officials, but they will be looking into this, and they are now all on the scene in order to learn more and determine what exactly happened after about 20 people are now injured due to this incident. Reporting live from downtown Baltimore, I'm Annie Rose Ramos for WJZ.
Annie Rose, thank you. You can imagine quite the scene this morning. 8:30, the explosion at the BGE building, a partial roof collapse. Debris is described by witnesses as raining down from above. We even heard Annie Rose say some what seems like construction helmets were blown off the top of the building. 21 people were rescued. 10 people were transported for treatment. We have Rachel Menetoff was at the press conference. Rachel, we heard a lot of praise for the fire department and their swift action.
That's right, Sean, we did, and the fire department says that they train for situations like this one, so they were super prepared to respond. As you mentioned, 21 people were rescued from the building here behind us. 10 of those were transported to area hospitals. 9 people are in critical condition, and 1 person is now in serious condition. The fire department says right now they are still inside this building. They are going floor to floor to make sure that no one else is inside the building and that the structure is safe and that the surrounding buildings in this area are safe. You heard the fire department explain today that the cause of this explosion, it remains under investigation. Their priority right now, though, is to make sure that this area along North Charles and Fayette Street in downtown Baltimore is secure. Take a listen to some of the sound from the press conference just moments ago.
At this time, we do have fire department personnel going through the building, each floor, just to make sure that there aren't any additional people and that we've accounted for everyone that was in fact inside of the building. The cause right now is still under investigation and remains under investigation. As you can see, it's a pretty active scene right now that we have going on.
We also heard from the fire department that there were 2 contractors. They were tethered to the side of the building as part of the scaffolding that you can probably see behind us. They had to be pulled through the 10th and 11th floor of the building. They have been rescued, and we're told that they're in decent condition. Sean, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Recap real quick what we know so far. Witnesses say around 8:30 this morning there was an explosion at the BGE building. As you can see, a partial roof collapse. Baltimore City Fire Department has had to transport 21 people, rescue 21 people. 10 were transported, 9 in critical condition, 1 in serious condition. They are saying to avoid this area along West Fayette Street. This is at 2 Center Plaza in downtown, BGE offices. The good news here, a lot of that building was empty because of the pandemic, people working from home, and of course the upcoming holidays. We do know 2 window washers had to be rescued from a scaffolding which was dangling from the side of the building. Luckily, fire crews were there quick. They were there on the scene. They were able to bring both of those window washers to safety. Of course, we will have team coverage coming up live at noon, and of course, you can always find us online at WJZ.com.